In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from the hustle of bustling star systems, there was a small, forgotten ship drifting through space. It wasn't a big ship, nor a military one, but a research vessel sent to study the mysterious space around a star cluster. Its mission was simple: collect data, run tests, and send the information back home. But it wasn't long before the crew picked up something they didn't expect. At first, the signal was weak. Just a tiny blip in the vast ocean of space. It didn't make sense. The code was old, something from a time long past. The crew was puzzled. No one sent messages like this anymore. No one from their world, at least. The language used was ancient, practically forgotten. It was human. That much was certain. But how could this be? Humanity had long been considered a thing of the past, its colonies destroyed and its people scattered. The stories told of the legendary war against the alien empire and how humanity had disappeared, leaving behind only memories. The captain of the research ship, a seasoned officer named Marla Kane, frowned as she studied the signal. She was no stranger to strange phenomena in space. But this was different. The message wasn't just a random noise. It had meaning. It was clear, and it begged for help. An SOS. The coordinates pointed to a planet on the edge of known space, one that wasn't marked on any maps. A planet that shouldn't exist according to the Galactic Council. The ship's crew was uneasy. They knew they couldn't ignore a signal like this. They were far from any known human settlement. And yet, the message seemed undeniable. It was a call from the past, a relic of a forgotten time, and it was asking for help. But who could it be from? Was it possible that some humans still lived out there, hidden away on some forgotten world? Marla knew they had to investigate. She immediately set course for the coordinates, and the ship began its long journey toward the unknown planet. The crew, a mixture of scientists and engineers, worked together to decode the message further, revealing more details about its origin. It spoke of a planet under siege, enslaved by a powerful alien force, and the survivors, human survivors, fighting to hold on. As the ship neared the planet, the signal grew stronger. It was clearer now, filled with desperation. The SOS had been sent years ago, but its reach had been delayed by the vast distances of space. Whoever had sent it was still alive, or at least they had been at the time. They were human, and they were asking for help. Marla felt a deep unease settle in her chest. Could humanity truly have been lost for all these years, only to have a few survivors emerge in secret? And why had no one else heard their plea? The research ship entered the planet's atmosphere, and Marla couldn't help but wonder what she would find. Would they find a civilization clinging to life, or had the planet long been abandoned, its people wiped out by the alien invaders? There was only one way to find out. With the ship's engines rumbling softly beneath her feet, Marla made her decision. They would land, investigate, and uncover the truth behind the SOS that had summoned them. Little did they know, this mission would not only reveal the survival of humanity, but also awaken something far greater: the return of humanity's fiercest warriors. The research ship touched down on the planet's surface with a soft, almost silent thud. The planet was strange, its landscape a mix of deserts, rocky terrain, and ancient, crumbling buildings. The once thriving cities had long since fallen into decay, overtaken by nature and time. Dust swirled in the air as the crew stepped out, their boots crunching against the dry earth. Captain Marla Kane stood at the front of the crew, staring out over the land. The SOS had led them here, but what would they find? There was no sign of life at first glance. No people, no signs of civilization. Only the ruins of a forgotten world. "We should be careful," Marla said, turning to her crew. "We don't know what's waiting for us." Her voice was steady, but a knot of uncertainty tightened in her stomach. The message had been clear. Humanity was in danger, but this planet was quiet, eerie in its stillness. Something didn't feel right. As they ventured further into the ruins, the crew discovered something unexpected. Hidden deep beneath the surface of the planet, the remains of a massive underground base lay dormant. The base was well hidden, shielded from view by the planet's crumbled surface. It looked ancient, yet its technology was far beyond anything the crew had ever seen. The entrance to the base was sealed, its metal door rusted with age. But as they examined it, they found a series of codes embedded into the structure, codes that matched the language of the SOS they had received. Someone had been here, someone who knew this place well. The crew worked together to break the codes, and after what felt like hours, the door finally slid open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the walls were covered in strange symbols. The base was vast, much larger than the crew had anticipated, and it was clear that this place had once been the heart of something important. The technology inside was both familiar and alien at the same time. But what really caught their attention was what lay at the center of the base. A massive chamber filled with cryogenic pods. In each pod, a figure lay frozen, suspended in time. Humans, dozens of them. Marla's heart skipped a beat as she approached one of the pods. The faces of the sleeping soldiers were calm, peaceful even, as if they had been waiting for something. The pods were old, too old, but the technology inside them still functioned. They're alive, Marla whispered in disbelief. Her voice echoed in the chamber, and for a moment, she wondered if she had imagined it. But the blinking lights on the pods told a different story. These were no ordinary people. These were soldiers, warriors. As the crew moved deeper into the base, they uncovered records that told a story of a forgotten war. The humans in these pods were the last remnants of humanity's greatest warriors, frozen in time to survive a war that had almost wiped out their entire race. They had been placed here, in stasis, waiting for the day when they could awaken and fight again. Captain Marla's mind raced as the weight of the discovery sank in. These warriors were the key to everything. They were humanity's final hope. And now, after all these years, they were about to be reawakened. But as she stared at the frozen soldiers, a chilling thought crossed her mind. Were they ready to fight again? Could they still be the fierce warriors they once were? Only time would tell. The base was dark and silent, but there was a strange energy pulsing in the air, like something powerful was just waiting to be unleashed. Captain Marla Kane and her crew had discovered the cryogenic chamber, but there was no time to waste. These warriors, humanity's last hope, needed to be awakened. The SOS had led them here, and now they had to find out what happened to the people who sent it. Who were they? And why had they been left on this desolate world? With the cryogenic pods now activated, the soldiers inside began to stir. The machinery hummed softly as each pod opened with a hiss of released air. One by one, the figures inside stepped out, their movements slow at first, but soon gaining strength. They were human, but different. Their eyes held the sharp focus of someone who had seen battle. Their bodies were more than human, enhanced with technology, genetically modified to be stronger, faster, and deadlier than any ordinary person. The first to step forward was General Kalin, his tall frame casting a long shadow as he looked around. He was a man out of time, his face marked with the experience of countless battles. He had been the leader of the Ninth Fleet, humanity's greatest military force during the war. But that war was supposed to be over. Humanity was thought to be lost, extinct. Yet here they were, standing on a planet that shouldn't even exist, surrounded by the remnants of a forgotten world. What is this place? General Kalin's voice was deep and commanding, his gaze sweeping across the crew. Marla stepped forward, her heart racing. It's a planet no one knows about. We received an SOS from here, human survivors, calling for help. Survivors, Kalin repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. He seemed to have trouble processing the information. How long has it been? Marla hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Longer than any of us could have imagined. The rest of the soldiers, who had been asleep in their pods for so long, began to stir as well. They too were elite warriors, hardened by years of combat, and each one of them was as deadly as the next. They moved with the precision of a well-trained army, scanning their surroundings and preparing for whatever danger might lurk in the shadows. As they stepped out of the chamber and into the ruined base, Marla could feel the weight of the situation. These were humanity's fiercest warriors, trained to fight and survive against impossible odds. But the world they once knew was gone. The alien empire they had fought had fallen, but new threats had emerged, unknown forces that had taken over this planet. And the humans who had sent the SOS had been caught in the middle. The crew quickly gathered the data they could find. What they discovered was even more troubling than they had imagined. The planet's surface had been ravaged by war, its cities destroyed by the same alien forces that had once waged a terrible campaign against humanity. The survivors had been living in hiding, fighting back with whatever resources they had left. "They've been fighting for years," one of the crew members said, scanning a datapad. "But it's not just the aliens. There are others here. Something else is out there." Marla frowned. She knew this was bigger than they had first thought. The SOS wasn't just a call for help. It was a warning. Kalen turned to her, his eyes filled with determination. "We're going to find them. And we'll make sure they have a future." The warriors' purpose was clear now. The fight was no longer just about survival. It was about reclaiming their people's future, no matter the cost. The battle for the planet was about to begin, and humanity's fiercest warriors were ready to lead the charge. The sun dipped below the horizon as General Callan and his warriors gathered in the command room, a place once used for strategic planning during humanity's grandest battles. Now it felt like a ghost of the past, empty and cold. Yet the warriors were sharp, ready to carry out the mission that had brought them here. The crew of the research ship stood nearby, watching as the soldiers prepared. The task ahead was clear: liberate the surviving humans, crush the alien invaders, and restore hope to a planet that had been forgotten. "Everything is ready," Marla said, checking her equipment. "We've pinpointed the enemy strongholds. The survivors are hidden in a few locations across the planet." General Kalen nodded, his sharp gaze scanning the map. "We don't have time to waste. We'll strike fast and hard. We'll hit them where it hurts." The warriors, now dressed in their advanced combat armor, moved with precision. Each one was a specialist, skilled in different forms of warfare: combat, sabotage, strategy. They were humanity's finest, born and bred for battle. Even though the planet was quiet, the feeling of imminent danger hung in the air. The first target was a small enemy base, located on the outskirts of the nearest human settlement. The warriors, led by Kellen, boarded transport ships and flew through the sky, the noise of their engines cutting through the silence like a warning. The base was heavily guarded, surrounded by a high wall and protected by advanced alien technology. But none of that fazed the soldiers. They had fought in worse conditions before. As the transport ships touched down near the base, the warriors jumped out, weapons raised. They didn't hesitate. They had been trained for this moment, trained to break through enemy lines with nothing but their skill and determination. The first wave of aliens was caught off guard, surprised by the sudden assault. The warriors moved with deadly efficiency, their weapons cutting through the enemy ranks like a hot knife through butter. Kalen led the charge, his voice booming through the chaos. "Push forward. Don't let them regroup." The warriors followed his lead, sweeping through the base with speed and precision. Explosions rang out as they set charges on key structures, crippling the alien force's ability to fight back. The base, once a symbol of oppression, was now being torn apart by the unstoppable human force. But as they pushed deeper into the base, something unexpected happened. A new wave of alien reinforcements arrived, more heavily armed than the first group. The warriors quickly found themselves surrounded by a second line of defense, and the battle turned fierce. General Kalen's mind raced. The plan had been simple: strike fast, break their defenses, and extract the survivors. But now it was clear that the enemy had anticipated their arrival. This wasn't just a battle for freedom. It was a battle for survival. "Form up," Callan ordered. "We'll fight them off here. Keep pushing." The warriors fought with everything they had. Their enhanced strength, speed, and battle tactics were unmatched, but even they struggled against the sheer number of alien reinforcements. The aliens were strong, but they had underestimated one thing: the will of humanity. The warriors fought back, using every trick they knew. They used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, creating distractions, and launching hit-and-run attacks. Each strike was precise, each move calculated. In the end, after hours of intense combat, the warriors had driven the alien forces from the base. But the victory was bittersweet. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The alien forces were regrouping, preparing for the next assault, and the warriors knew the true test was yet to come. "We've only just begun," Callan said, standing tall amid the destruction. "The fight for humanity starts now." The warriors had proven their strength in the first battle, but they knew the hardest part was still ahead. The battle for the planet was far from over, and only the fiercest warriors could lead humanity to victory. The dust from the recent battle still hung in the air as General Callan surveyed the battlefield. The enemy base, now reduced to rubble, was a testament to the warriors' brutal efficiency. Yet, despite their victory, a feeling of unease lingered in the air. The aliens they had just defeated were only the first wave, and Callan knew the battle was far from over. "Move out," Callan commanded, his voice calm but firm. The warriors quickly regrouped, preparing to head toward the next target, the hidden human survivors. They couldn't afford to waste time. The longer they stayed in one place, the more likely they were to attract the attention of the alien reinforcements. As the warriors boarded their transport ships and took off, the ground beneath them trembled. The distant sound of engines rumbled in the sky. The air was thick with tension, and the warriors could sense that something wasn't right. It was too quiet. It didn't feel like a normal mission. "Something's off," whispered one of the soldiers, his hand resting on the grip of his weapon. General Callan's eyes narrowed. He could feel it too. The usual hum of enemy communications, the telltale signs of an impending attack, none of it was there. Instead, there was only silence, a silence that felt too deep, too ominous. Without warning, the first shot rang out. It came from nowhere, striking one of the transport ships in midair. The blast shook the entire ship, sending it into a spiral toward the ground. Callan's heart skipped a beat as he realized what had happened. Their position had been compromised. They had walked straight into a trap. "Brace for impact," Callan shouted as the transport ship began to plummet. The warriors held on tightly, preparing for the worst. The ship crashed to the ground in a fiery explosion, sending a wave of dust and debris into the air. But before the dust could even settle, the warriors were already moving. They had trained for this. They had fought in worse conditions, but this was different. The ambush was far larger than they had anticipated. From the shadows, hundreds of alien forces emerged. They had been waiting for the warriors, lying in wait for the perfect moment to strike. The warriors were surrounded, their transport ships destroyed, and their numbers now significantly reduced. The alien forces were not just larger, they were smarter. These were no ordinary enemies. General Callan gritted his teeth. This was not a simple fight for survival anymore. It was a battle of wits. The aliens had studied them, learned their tactics, and were now using that knowledge against them. The warriors would need to fight with everything they had if they wanted to survive. "Form a perimeter," Callan ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We hold our ground, or we die trying." The warriors quickly regrouped, setting up defenses and using the terrain to their advantage. They fought back with deadly precision, cutting through the alien forces with their advanced weaponry and combat tactics. But the aliens were relentless. They came at the warriors from all angles, using the cover of the ruins to stay hidden until it was too late. Callan's mind raced as he assessed the situation. They couldn't keep fighting like this. They needed to break the enemy's hold, strike at their core, and take the fight to the aliens before they were completely overwhelmed. With a sharp motion, Kalen signaled to his second-in-command, Lyra, a young resistance leader who had been fighting alongside the warriors. She understood immediately. The warriors would need a distraction, something to draw the aliens' attention away from their true target. Lyra sprinted toward an old communications tower, setting explosives along the way. "Get ready," she called out as she prepared to set off the charges. The warriors, seeing her plan, began moving in formation to cover her. With a thunderous blast, the tower exploded, sending a shockwave through the battlefield. The alien forces, caught off guard, momentarily faltered. It was just the opening the warriors needed. "Now, push forward," Kalen shouted. With the aliens briefly disoriented, the warriors surged forward, using the confusion to launch a full-scale counterattack. The battle raged on, but the warriors had reclaimed the initiative. They had been ambushed, but they had turned the tide. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like they might actually win. The battle had raged on for hours, and the warriors were feeling the strain. Their bodies, enhanced by technology and battle experience, could endure much, but even they had limits. The alien forces had been relentless, and despite their best efforts, the warriors had only managed to secure a small victory. The ambush had nearly wiped them out, and now they were stuck behind enemy lines, their communications scrambled and their transport ships destroyed. General Kalen stood with his back to a ruined wall, breathing heavily as he surveyed the battlefield. His warriors had fought bravely, but they were beginning to tire. The aliens were adapting, learning from their every move, and Kalen knew they needed more than just strength to win this fight. They needed knowledge. "We can't keep fighting like this," Kalen muttered to himself. "We need answers." The warriors had pushed the aliens back for now, but the situation was still dire. Marla Kane and the research crew had done their best to gather data from the planet's remains, but it wasn't enough. The only way to truly turn the tide of the battle was to understand the enemy, its origins, its plans, and most importantly, its weaknesses. "There's a place," Lyra, Kalen's second-in-command, said as she approached. "A hidden facility deep underground. I've heard rumors from the survivors. They say it's where the aliens are conducting experiments, trying to unlock the secrets of human technology." Kalen's eyes narrowed. "A facility. And you think that's where we'll find the answers we need?" Lyra nodded. "It's our best chance. If we can infiltrate the facility and discover what they're hiding, we might be able to turn the tide. But it won't be easy." Kalen didn't hesitate. "Then we go. Prepare the team. We move out in an hour." The warriors quickly regrouped and made their way to the entrance of the underground facility. The terrain was harsh, and the alien forces were still out there, but Kalen was determined. This was humanity's last chance to take control of their destiny. As they descended into the depths of the planet, the air grew colder, and the walls of the facility seemed to close in around them. The strange symbols that decorated the walls were alien, unlike anything Kalen had ever seen before. The more they advanced, the more it felt like they were stepping into the unknown. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the facility, and it was unlike anything they had ever imagined. Inside, rows upon rows of strange machines lined the walls. Some were active, glowing with a faint, eerie light. Others were dark, their functions unclear. But in the center of the room was something that made Kalen's blood run cold. A large, glass chamber. Inside the chamber was a figure, a human. But this wasn't any ordinary human. The person inside the chamber was connected to a series of tubes and wires, their body hooked up to a machine that seemed to drain the life force from them. Their skin was pale, their eyes wide open, but lifeless. "What is this?" Marla whispered, her voice trembling with shock. Kalen's heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't just a research facility. It was something far darker. The aliens had been experimenting on humans, trying to understand their biology, their technology, maybe even their strength, and it was clear that they hadn't stopped with just one person. "Look!" Lyra shouted, pointing to another chamber on the far side of the room. Inside this chamber, there were more figures, humans, all hooked up to the same terrifying machines. They were alive, but barely. Their faces were twisted in pain, their bodies clearly altered in ways that made them more machine than human. Kalen clenched his fists. The aliens had been harvesting human bodies, turning them into something else, something monstrous. This was why they had been fighting so hard. The enemy wasn't just trying to conquer, they were trying to become humanity. "This ends now," Kalen growled. "We're not just here to fight for survival. We're here to stop them from turning humanity into a weapon." With a fierce determination, Kalen ordered the warriors to destroy the facility. They weren't just fighting for land or freedom. They were fighting for the soul of their species. As they set explosives around the facility, Kalen knew that the battle was far from over, but at least now they had a purpose. The warriors of humanity were not only fighting for survival, they were fighting for their very identity. The underground facility was in ruins. Explosions had rocked the structure, sending debris and dust flying through the air. Kalen stood at the entrance of the crumbling complex, watching as the warriors made sure every corner was cleared. The aliens had been dealt a heavy blow, but Kalen knew this victory, like so many others, was temporary. The war was far from over. "We've done what we could here," Marla said, catching up with him. "But we're running out of time. The alien forces will regroup." Kalen turned to her, his face grim. "I know, but this is just the beginning. The real fight is coming." The warriors had destroyed the alien research facility, but Kalen had seen enough to know that the enemy was still a formidable force. The experiments they had uncovered were only the tip of the iceberg. The aliens weren't just invading, they were trying to transform humanity into something else, something they could control. "Where do we go from here?" Lyra asked, joining them. "The survivors are still scattered, and the alien forces are too strong to defeat head-on." Kalen paused, considering their options. The planet was vast, and there were still pockets of survivors hiding in its remote regions. But if they kept scattering their forces, they risked being overwhelmed. They needed a plan, a final stand that would shake the enemy to its core. "We'll gather all the survivors," Kalen said. "We'll unite them and strike at the heart of the enemy." Marla raised an eyebrow. "The heart of the enemy? You mean the alien capital?" Kalen nodded. "It's the only way. We need to destroy their command center. If we take out their leaders, their entire operation will collapse. But we'll need every fighter we can find. We'll need to hit them hard, and we'll need to do it together." The plan was risky. Attacking the heart of the alien forces would be a suicide mission if they weren't careful. But Kalen was willing to take that risk. The warriors of humanity had nothing left to lose, and this was their chance to finally strike back. They spent the next few days rallying the survivors. The warriors moved quickly, contacting hidden resistance groups and gathering fighters. The survivors they found were not the same as the people Kalen had known before. They were hardened, scared by years of war and fear. But they had one thing in common. They all wanted the same thing: to end the alien occupation. As they made their final preparations, Kalen felt a strange sense of unity. The warriors had always fought alone, but now they were part of something bigger. The survivors, the soldiers, and the people who had been hiding for so long. They were all part of the same team, fighting for the same cause. "This is it," Kalen said, standing before the gathered forces. "The aliens thought they could break us, but they were wrong. We've lost much, but we still have each other. And that's all we need to win." The warriors, survivors, and soldiers raised their weapons in unison, a signal that they were ready. The time for hiding was over. It was time for the final assault. They moved out, a united force, heading toward the heart of the alien stronghold. The battle would be fierce, but Kalen knew that no matter what happened, humanity's fiercest warriors would fight with everything they had. This was their last stand, and they would not go down without a fight. As the warriors advanced, Callan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They were humanity's last hope, and they were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their species, and that, Callan knew, made them unstoppable. The sky was filled with the hum of transport ships as they descended toward the alien stronghold. General Callan stood at the front of the assembled force, his face set in grim determination. Behind him, thousands of warriors and survivors moved like a single, unstoppable unit. This was humanity's final push, the moment they had all been waiting for. The time to reclaim their world had arrived. The alien capital loomed ahead, its towering structures visible from miles away. It was a city unlike anything Callan had ever seen. It looked like a machine, not a city, with every building constructed to serve a single purpose: to defend the alien empire and crush any resistance. But today, that machine would fall. "We've trained for this," Callan said, his voice steady as he addressed the troops. "We know what's at stake. Our families, our future. It all comes down to this. Stick together, fight hard, and remember why we're here. This is for humanity." The warriors, survivors, and soldiers gave a roar of agreement, their spirits lifted by Callan's words. They had fought together for so long, each battle harder than the last, but now they were united by one common goal. They would break through the heart of the alien empire or die trying. The transports touched down outside the capital, and the warriors spilled out, immediately taking up defensive positions. The alien forces were waiting for them, prepared for battle. The first wave of attackers appeared almost immediately, alien soldiers moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Their weapons were advanced, their tactics ruthless, but Callan had seen this before. He knew exactly how they would react. "Hold the line," Callan shouted, and the warriors obeyed without hesitation. The battle erupted in a storm of gunfire and explosions. The warriors fought with everything they had, their enhanced bodies moving with deadly efficiency. The alien forces fought back just as hard, but the warriors were different. They were humans, and they were fighting for their homes, for their families. They were fighting for everything that mattered. Callan led the charge, his sword cutting through the air as he moved with unmatched speed. He could feel the weight of the fight pressing down on him, but he didn't falter. The warriors behind him were just as determined, pushing forward with everything they had. They tore through the alien forces, advancing steadily toward the heart of the capital. But the closer they got, the more difficult the fight became. The alien defenses were stronger than Callan had expected. They had adapted, learned from the battles before, and they were now better prepared. Alien drones and automated turrets rose from the ground, firing relentlessly at the advancing warriors. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. "We need to disable those turrets," Lyra shouted as she sprinted beside Callan. Callan nodded. "Cover her. Move out." The warriors split into smaller teams, pushing forward to disable the alien weapons. It wasn't easy. The turrets were heavily guarded, and the alien drones swarmed like angry bees, attacking anything that moved. But the warriors weren't afraid. They worked in unison, their precision and coordination making them a deadly force. Lyra reached the control center of the turrets, planting explosive charges on the main power supply. As the last charge went off, the turrets fell silent. A cheer erupted from the warriors. "We've cleared the way," Lyra yelled, grinning. But Callan's attention was focused on something else, the massive building ahead of them, the heart of the alien empire. Inside that building, the alien leaders were waiting. They were the ones who had orchestrated the invasion, the ones responsible for the pain and suffering the human race had endured for so long. "We push forward," Callan said, his voice cold. "We end this now." The warriors surged forward, storming the final stretch toward the building. The alien forces fought to the bitter end, but they were no match for the relentless human assault. With every step, Callan could feel the weight of the final moment approaching. He could almost hear the sound of the alien empire crumbling beneath them. As the warriors breached the main doors of the building, Kalen led the charge inside, ready to face whatever awaited them. The final battle was about to begin. The future of humanity rested in their hands, and Kalen was ready to make the ultimate sacrifice to ensure that future. It was time to take back their world. The interior of the alien stronghold was unlike anything Kalen had ever seen. Cold metal walls stretched into darkness, and strange, glowing symbols pulsed along the floors and ceilings. The air felt heavy, thick with the presence of the alien leaders, those who had masterminded the invasion, those who had crushed humanity for so long. But today, it would all end. Kalen's heart pounded in his chest as he and his warriors moved through the corridors. The final room was ahead, the one where the alien commanders waited. Every step they took brought them closer to victory, or to death. But Kalen knew there was no turning back. The warriors of humanity had already come so far. There was no retreat. The deeper they went, the more the alien forces fought back. Drones flew overhead, firing lasers, while alien soldiers armed with energy weapons tried to hold the line. But Kalen's warriors were unstoppable. They cut through the opposition with precision, their weapons flashing in the dim light. Humanity's fiercest warriors were determined, and nothing would stop them. "We're almost there," Lyra said, breathless but focused, as she ran beside Kalen. Kalen nodded. The door ahead of them was massive, seemingly impenetrable, but they had come too far to hesitate now. He signaled to his team, and they quickly set up charges around the door's base. The countdown began. 5 seconds, shouted one of the warriors. The seconds seemed to stretch forever as the warriors braced themselves. The door burst open with a deafening explosion. Dust and debris filled the air, but Kalen and his team stormed through, weapons raised and ready. Inside, the alien leaders waited, tall, dark figures standing motionless in front of a large control panel. They were expecting the attack, but they didn't seem worried. "Welcome," one of the alien leaders said in a smooth, eerie voice. "We have been expecting you. You are the last hope of your species, and yet you are too late." Kalen's eyes narrowed as he scanned the room. He could feel the aliens' arrogance, their belief that they had already won, but he wouldn't let them intimidate him. "We're not too late," Kalen replied firmly. "We're just in time." The alien leader laughed. "You think you can stop us? You are insects, mere mortals. We have already evolved past your kind. This war was never about winning. It was about domination. And you were never meant to survive." Kalen raised his weapon. "That's where you're wrong." In a flash, the warriors charged forward, weapons blazing. The alien leaders fought back, their own weapons crackling with energy. But the warriors had the advantage. They fought with everything they had, every ounce of their will focused on one thing: destroying the alien threat once and for all. Kalen moved like a shadow, his sword cutting through the air, meeting the alien leader's energy blasts head-on. Each strike was precise, deadly. The leader was strong, but Kalen was stronger. The alien faltered, its defenses weakening under the relentless onslaught of human warriors. In the chaos of battle, the control panel in the center of the room flickered. It was their chance. "Destroy it," Kalen shouted. Lyra and another warrior sprinted toward the panel, planting explosive charges with quick precision. The alien leader's eyes widened in realization. No. Before it could react, the charge detonated with a massive explosion. The control panel erupted in a shower of sparks and flames, sending shockwaves through the room. The alien leaders shrieked in fury, their power quickly waning as their connection to the command network was severed. With one final push, the warriors overwhelmed the alien leaders, bringing them to their knees. Kalen stood victorious, but his chest still heaved with exertion. The battle had been long and brutal, but it was over. The alien empire, which had seemed so invincible, had been brought to its knees by the warriors of humanity. Kalen looked around the room at his comrades, their faces weary but triumphant. Humanity had done it. They had taken back their world, their future. And they had done it together. "We've won," Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with disbelief. Kalen nodded. "We've won. But the real victory is that we're still here. We're still human. And we'll rebuild, no matter what." As the warriors left the alien stronghold, the dawn of a new day broke on the horizon. The sun rose over a free world, and humanity, stronger than ever, looked to the future. This was just the beginning of their new chapter. They had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that nothing could ever break them. Humanity's fiercest warriors had risen, and the galaxy would never forget the day they fought back.